Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z and Corey Clubb, the podcast you're looking for. This is, yes.
For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
The force is strong here, even stronger than the coffee.
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
Hello, this is Dan Z, and welcome to show number 38 of Coffee with Kenobi, the Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. Filling in for Corey Clubb is our good friend and co-host, Jeff McGee.
Hello, everybody. With the San Diego Comic-Con announcements and the summer movie season in full swing, be sure to stay tuned to Coffee with Kenobi for the latest news, analysis, and discussion of the Star Wars saga. I'd also like to encourage everyone to check out the newest episode of Bantha Banter with my special guest, Matt Huntsworth from Star Wars in Character. You can find that at marvindogmedia.com, where you can also find several other shows that Marvin Dog Media produces, so hopefully you'll find something else you might enjoy listening to. And our Coffee with Kenobi bloggers always have something new for you to enjoy at our website, coffeewithkenobi.com, so head on over there to see what's brewing with our bloggers today.
In today's show, Scott Murray of Assembly of Geeks joins us to discuss our topic for show number 38, Revenge of the Sith. We continue our analysis of the 6 existing films and look at some of the deeper meanings in the films, as well as some of the more intriguing analytical elements. We also discuss major announcements concerning San Diego Comic-Con, including merchandise.
We will also discuss the passing of Christopher Lee, Star Wars comics, and a guest blog from Kenny Craley Jr. We also have your next offering of Your Espresso Shot with the Bearded Trio featuring Rob Wienfer.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Oh, wait. This is interesting. You found something.
I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
Our first news story, we're going to look at the incredible announcement about Star Wars and its presence at San Diego Comic-Con 2015. And Jeff, this is pretty cool. Obviously, very famously, when San Diego Comic-Con first started, back many, many years ago, that's kind of how Star Wars got a bit of a foothold on the fan community and helped cause those amazing lines when Star Wars premiered in 1977. But historically, Star Wars hasn't really been a big deal at Comic-Con. It's been there. There's always been a Star Wars Day, very merchandise-heavy and focusing on Del Rey and other things like that. Now we've got Hall H going on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day when the announcements came out. Back in 2005, Comic-Con was still pretty big, but it wasn't even as big then as it is now. In the last 10 years, it has just exploded in, media importance. So I'm not surprised that we are going to have quite a bit more Star Wars presence here. And I wonder if the kind of reveals that we're going to see, the way that they've based on what they've told us about what's going to happen in Hall H, it sounds like it's going to be sort of a continuation of what we saw at Celebration, because you've got J.J. Abrams and the rest of the crew there, and this time they're actually adding Lawrence Kasdan, correct?
Yes, that's a big deal. Obviously, he wasn't in Anaheim that we know of. I'm pretty sure he wasn't. And it says special guests, wink, wink. So I would assume that's going to be the cast that we saw at Celebration Anaheim. It would be great if Harrison Ford were included this time through, and I'm pretty sure, in fact I know, last time he came to Comic-Con, I think he went last year for something. Well, I can't really think, was he promoting that novel? What was that novel that was made into that classic Alan Dean Foster novel?
Oh, Ender's Game.
Yeah, that's Alan Dean Foster, right?
Yes.
Or
no, that's Orson Scott Card. Orson Scott Card. And that was like 2 years ago. So
yeah, okay.
If he was there last year, it was, I don't know, maybe he was promoting Harrison Ford's tourist flights straight into hell because he's going to crash the plane.
Nice. Subtle. Hey, man, that guy, you heard of Edu Adama's blog. I read his blog for Coffee with Kenobi, how he explained what a great pilot he actually
exactly.
is.
That's
You're sarcastic, aren't you?
I'm very. Have you met me?
I've heard of sarcasm. I'm looking into it. It's the when Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out, a very, very underrated film, Mr. Jeff McGee. He was present there at Comic-Con, but it was via Skype with the cast and Spielberg. So if he does show up, that would be pretty remarkable. And I sense you want to say something about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, don't you?
No, that's okay. I'll let you labor under your delusion for as long as you need to.
That's very kind. That's
Yes.
why you're a good co-host.
Exactly. I still say the first half of that movie is outstanding. The
That's
second
fair.
half, it just lost me. But the first
That's
half of that film, I would put up against just about any of the Indiana Jones films.
Well, that's you know what? That's very high praise.
Yes.
I like that. Okay, so besides Hall H, which again, I'm sure people will start getting in line for that now because that's tremendous.
Right.
Star Wars Publishing has got a couple of great things going on. Hasbro's got a presence here that seems to be a little bit more prolific than Celebration Anaheim's presence.
Well, they have a presence, period. I mean, were they even... I know they were at Celebration, but I don't remember... Like, there weren't even really any real product reveals or anything, were there?
No, they had a booth, and they had like Dave Filoni and Ashley Eckstein and others were signing, which is pretty remarkable. They gave away some great posters and images from Season 2 of Rebels, but actually there was a prototype of a 6-inch Black Series Ahsoka. But that kind of flew under the radar. It was cool. It was very cool to see. But that's about it, really. But this, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in our collector's segment, but Hasbro's got some stuff going on. Maybe we'll see some images from The Force Awakens. I don't know. That's just a guess on my part.
I think you're probably right. Going back to that Ahsoka, I missed that completely. Was that Clone Wars Ahsoka or was that Rebels Ahsoka?
It's Rebels. She has the two lightsabers, the white ones, and she's an adult, a young adult. So yeah,
that's going to be a great looking figure.
Yeah, I think so. Probably be very hard to find too.
For a while.
Yeah, for a while, for sure. Well, I still, when Boba Fett had its exclusive a couple years ago, and now you can get the 6-inch Black Series Fett minus Han Solo and Carbonite. I still have only seen that once in stores in a couple of years.
That's true. That's very true.
So who knows? Maybe, I don't know if that was under package or not. We've also got collector's updates with Anita Castelar showing some EFX and Gentle Giant and all the good collectibles there. ILM's got a 40th anniversary thing, and Disney Infinities. So Star Wars is going to have a wonderful presence at Comic-Con, and I sure wish we could be there. In a way.
In a way. I wish I could Skype in. That's it. Yes. If I could Skype into all of the panels, especially, oddly enough, the ILM panel is the one that's intriguing me the most because it's hard to believe it's been around for 40 years. And I can't imagine what sort of... that's going to be a cool panel because they're going to have a lot of like stills and maybe even some video of the history of ILM, and I'm really excited about that. And our second news story today is a bit of sad news. Sir Christopher Lee, who we all know and loved as Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, passed away at the age of 93. Talk about a life well lived. This guy, he was 6'5", and
that's amazing, isn't it?
You pair that with that voice that he had and those just piercing eyes, and he was the guy was basically born to play a villain. And born to play the greatest villains known to man. He played Count Dooku. He played Saruman in Lord of the Rings. He played a Bond villain. Played the man with the golden gun.
Scaramanga, is that his name?
Scaramanga, yes.
Yep.
And he also played Dracula. He played Mycroft Holmes. I believe he also played Sherlock Holmes, and he even played Lord Baskerville in The Hound of the Baskervilles. So this was a gentleman whose career spanned decades, and he did everything from horror to really camp comedy in Gremlins 2. He was great in Gremlins 2 as a
I've never
scientist.
seen Gremlins 2.
Gremlins 2 is an underrated film. You should check it out. It's a spoof. It's a satire of the first film.
Oh, interesting.
And a lot of
interesting directorial choice on that.
Yeah, people didn't realize it when it came out, but if you watch it now, I mean, it's hilarious. And he is great in it because he, like Leslie Nielsen, he plays it straight. But he was in on the joke. And we paid tribute to him on Assembly of Geeks earlier this week, and one of the articles that we found was on IO9. It was 22 incredible facts about the life and career of Sir Christopher Lee. And first of all, before the age of 25, he served in World War II and worked as a Nazi hunter and a spy. In fact, he was...
It's wild.
Ian Fleming was his step-cousin.
I saw that.
Was really one of his top choices to play James Bond in the films, but, I mean, honestly... The man, nobody could play a villain like this man, so I'm glad that didn't pan out, actually.
And I want to say, our media specialist Lisa Dullard and our good friend she did a blog for Coffee with Kenobi about Christopher Lee that was really beautiful and had some great facts about him, nice images, and very thoughtful. So we want to thank Lisa for that. Christopher Lee has always been someone I've really admired. I love Count Dooku. He's one of my favorite characters in the prequels. He voiced Dooku in the movie of Clone Wars, which certainly has its foibles, but has some very, very strong elements to it as well. So he will certainly be missed. One of the all-time greats, not only in Star Wars, but just an actor and just, by all accounts, a gentleman.
And truly a Renaissance man and a consummate performer. Not only was he, he acted, he also had a metal band, and at the age of 88 released a concept album about Charlemagne, of who was a descendant. He wrote and performed a metal concept album. But my favorite thing that I've read about him in the last week or so was that in 1966, when he was in the middle of doing the Hammer horror films and playing Dracula, he got tired of it because he felt the movies had gotten to be really subpar, and he tried to quit Hammer Films. But the executives guilted him into returning by stressing how many people would be out of work if he stopped churning out these movies. And he took that to heart and said, you know what, you're right, I'm going to come back and do Dracula, Prince of Darkness. But he felt that the script was so awful that he just absolutely refused to say any of the dialogue. And Hammer Films decided it was more important to have him star in the movie than it was to have anybody else speaking the lines. So they had a Dracula who only hissed and yelled throughout the film. And wow. On the surface, the pragmatist in me is like, you know what, you're an actor, you get paid, show up and do your job. But the artist in me says, you know what, you did it your way, you did it on your terms, and you allowed everybody to stay employed, so I got to hand it to him. Christopher Lee is actually my hero now. I have decided.
You know what, I love that novel. I teach it every year. It's a wonderful novel. No really good, sincere adaptation of that book. Actually, Mel Brooks's Dracula Dead and Loving It comes the closest for the first half hour or 40 minutes. But I've never seen him as Dracula. Are those films any good?
They're not. I mean, Hammer horror films they churned movies out. They're very atmospheric. They're obviously a step up from Roger Corman, but if we were to watch them today, they would not be scary. But again, he has such a commanding presence that you just can't take your eyes off of him. And he and Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing played Van Helsing in quite a few. So you had these two giants just sort of chewing the scenery together, and it was a race to see who could chew the most scenery by the end of the film.
So we most certainly raise our coffee mugs highly and proudly to Sir Christopher Lee. You shall be missed, my friend.
Absolutely. Also, he was a world champion fencer, an opera singer, spoke 6 languages, and by all accounts was a very good golfer.
For our next news story, I am so excited to have Matt Moore and Jeff McGee on to talk about the brand new podcast on the Coffee with Kenobi feed, Comics with Kenobi. Matt and Jeff, what do we got going on with Comics with Kenobi?
We have census-shattering first-issue episode synopses of all the awesome Marvel Star Wars comics that are coming out, are out, and have yet to come.
Yeah, what he said.
It's great because, obviously, my admiration for both of you I've talked about forever, both on the air and just individually. But when, I can't remember, Matt, if this was, I believe you had said something about, hey, you guys really ought to start talking about more of the comics. And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. And then come to fruition that you were interested in talking about it on the air. So we had to make this happen. And just wait till you see this logo.
Oh, well, it's going to be great. And here's the great thing about comics, especially the way we're talking about these Star Wars comics, is comics are meant to be enjoyed by talking about them and maybe reading them too. So, but no, I mean, it's clear that these comic books have really struck a nerve with fans of Star Wars. Not just the fact that they are in canon, but the fact that Marvel has unleashed its very clear, A teams on each and every book, and it's continuing to do so with some of the titles that have yet to come. I mean, I for one, I am so just ravenous for this upcoming Lando Calrissian miniseries that's being written by Charles Soule, who's done amazing work on She-Hulk and his own creator-owned book, Letter 44, that I'm chomping at the bit.
It's great. And Jeff, how did you get to be a part of Comics with Kenobi?
Matt said, hey, anybody want to do this? And everybody knows I can't say no to a podcast. So I said, sure, I'll step in, thinking it was going to be a segment on Coffee with Kenobi that would take, 10, 15 minutes every couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden it morphed into, no, we're going to have our own show. And I said, oh, great. I guess I should start reading more of the comics.
Well, and this is your 43rd podcast you're on now, right?
It's only 6. Getting even half dozen.
Yeah.
No, it's we Matt and I have conversed before online. He's been on Bantha Banter and been on Assembly of Geeks, and so we knew we had a good rapport. And I really enjoy listening to Matt talk about comics. I would listen to a show where it was just him spouting off his opinions on comics for an hour.
Comic Book Noob is one of the best podcasts out there.
I agree.
We have so much fun doing that. Scott Murray and Regina Davis and I. It's a whole lot of fun. And of course, a lot of people who listen to this podcast are very familiar with Scott Murray. It's just comic books, and I've said this before, and I've written this before on Coffee with Kenobi as well. Comic books form the cultural touchstone of popular culture nowadays.
Very much so.
And the fact that when you look at, for example, a new Star Wars film such as The Force Awakens, it's not an easy and inexpensive thing to make. Whereas, with comic books, which by no means are easy and inexpensive, when you compare them to others, it gives people a chance to explore the canon and the saga in a deeper way. And to my mind, and Jeff and I have spoken about this before, it's a very rich vein that needs to be mined. And it also needs to be sifted. And I think that's what we're going to be doing for the people who listen to this podcast.
Very much so. And the release schedule as of right now is when there's not a new regular show of Coffee with Kenobi, there's going to be a regular show of Comics with Kenobi. And as I said, it's going to be on our feed everywhere you can listen to our show. You're going to be able to have it. I, for one, cannot wait to not only listen to it, but I can't wait to be a guest.
Oh, well, Jeff and I know people, so we might be able to arrange it. So we'll have our people contact your people, and perhaps your people can maybe eat our people. And then that way you could just sort of invade the podcast.
Makes sense.
No, I think it would be great to have you on the show because you bring a very wonderful and level-headed analysis to all things Star Wars. That is, for all intents and purposes, not done anywhere else in the Star Wars fandom or on any Star Wars podcast that I'm aware of. So clearly, yes. I'll call it now. We'll definitely have you on the show, and hopefully you'll be on the show more than once.
Oh wow! Well, that's very awesome of you to say. I'm glad we have that on tape. I can listen to that when I'm feeling down. I love it.
There you go. There you go.
Great.
Yeah, that's why we're here. We're here to lift you up when you're feeling low.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I rarely feel down. And I figure if anything, if it didn't work out, I just pulled the Corey Club card. Maybe he could use his influence too. And hopefully, I'm sure Corey will be a guest. I do know that Corey's not as caught up currently on the comics as he wants to be, but he is as ravenous of a comic book fan as ever was, as am I. Both of you are huge comic book fans. I mean, it's obvious, it's palpable, and it's going to be a heck of a great show. Anything else you guys want to add before we carry on with our wayward son? I don't know why I said that.
Hey, it's never too late, and you're never too old for a really good Kansas reference.
That's right.
Dan, more power to you for that. One thing I do want to say is you had mentioned the logo, and this logo is a wonderful collaborative work. Corey Club did a lot of great effort in putting together a really awesome background that I think mimics sort of the style of 1970s Marvel giant size comic titles.
Yes.
And then I've got a good friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, Patrick Holcomb, who lives down in Florida. You can find him on the Twitter at GoneGator66, who helped put together the crux of the logo as well with our favorite Jedi Knight, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and really captures and evokes the spirit of comic books.
It's beautiful. It's going to look great on a T-shirt too. I can say that.
Oh, definitely, yes. And bumper stickers. It's going to be great.
It's happening.
and I would like to just mention our theme song. I'm very excited about that. You guys played Mark Hamill Can Handle by Chris Cape on Coffee with Kenobi a few weeks ago, and I heard it. And it was the day that Matt and I were scheduled to record our first show, and I said, "Hey, Matt, listen to this." you know that new sound you're looking for? And I said,
Marvin Berry.
What do you think about this as a theme song? And he listened to it and he said, oh, this is great. This is perfect. So I reached out to Chris, and he was very kind to let us. Not only did he send me the full version of the song, he also sent me a music bed of the instrumental to use as underscores. So we have him to thank for that.
I do think that listeners new and existing to Coffee with Kenobi are really going to enjoy Comics with Kenobi, and it's important that people realize that we called it Comics with Kenobi because it's a direct offshoot of Coffee with Kenobi, and we think that it should, it definitely should. It's part of the family, and the Coffee with Kenobi is such a well-known brand that's got such a strong fan base and a loyal following that it only seemed logical to not so much piggyback like we were writing a do-back, but to take advantage of that notoriety. And by notoriety, I mean a very good notoriety. And I think that, I'm confident that people are going to really enjoy this podcast, and it's just going to resonate even further with Coffee with Kenobi.
Amen to that. It's all part of our wonderful family that continues to grow, and the same level of analysis and insights will be there in more profound ways than you ever thought possible. As you're enjoying your Star Wars Marvel comic books, be sure to tune in to Comics with Kenobi. Matt and Jeff, thank you so much again for doing this, and we cannot wait for the very first episode.
Nor can I. Thank you so much for having us on, Dan. I really appreciate it.
For our next news story, we want to turn to coffeewithkenobi.com. We have a guest blog by our good friend Kenny Crayley Jr. Kenny's a great guy, and he's a big supporter of all things podcasting. He supports Coffee with Kenobi. He supports Assembly of Geeks. He supports Marvin Dog Media. It's every day you go on, he's posting something, a link to somebody else's podcast, and just a really great guy. And he penned
He's always got great reviews too.
Exactly, really great reviews. And he penned an open letter to Star Wars fans, and the gist of it is, you can go to the blog and read it because his writing is much better than my synopsis will be. But basically, it's a warning to fans about getting your information from reliable sources, because now that we have new Star Wars movies coming out, it's 2015, there's the spoiler culture is in full force now like it wasn't before, and everybody's rushing to scoop everybody else, and when that happens, there's going to be a lot of misinformation out there. And so Kenny is just reminding us to take everything with a grain of salt and find sites that you can trust, like the official site, StarWars.com, and sites like, Coffee with Kenobi.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them.
Who vet their information well, and everybody's go over, take a read at. Everybody go over, take a look at that, and leave a comment for Kenny. Let him know what you thought of it, and if you have any other suggestions for sites that you trust, let us know over there as well. And so yes. I just wanted to thank Kenny for taking the time to write that for us, and for being such a great supporter of the show.
Yes, Kenny, you are most certainly appreciated and valued in this community, and we're honored to be able to share your blog with everybody.
And now, your espresso shot with the Bearded Trio.
Hi everybody, it's Rob here from thebeardedtrio.com, bringing your latest espresso shot with the Bearded Trio. In this edition we got something slightly different. As I record this, Jurassic World hit the cinema screens only yesterday, so I thought I would bring you my review of Colin Trevorrow's film. Okay, let's address the Stegosaurus in the room here about Jurassic World. It's not a dinosaur movie. Jurassic Park was about dinosaurs, and in Steven Spielberg's own words said, I wanted Jurassic Park to be a dinosaur movie, not a monster movie. With that said, Jurassic World is most definitely a monster movie. But that's not a bad thing. If it's done right, then a good monster movie can be hugely entertaining. If done bad, then, well, we're left with a mega shark versus Dino, wherever they're called these days. Thankfully, Jurassic World falls into the good monster movie camp quite easily. Using another quote from Steven Spielberg regarding Jurassic Park, he said he wanted to make the perfect popcorn movie, and we can all agree that Jurassic Park was most definitely that. Jurassic World, 22 years later, continues that trend. Colin Trevorrow is the director this time and has admitted while filming Jurassic World that he felt a lot of pressure to make sure that the film delivers and doesn't disappoint fans of the original. Most fans felt let down by the 2 other attempts at a sequel, especially the third one. With none of the original cast returning to Trevorrow's film, except for B.D. Wong as Dr. Henry Wu, a lot of fans felt that Jurassic World would need to be something special to deliver, and have been waving red flags for some time. Well, it does deliver, and in fact, I would go as far to say that this is the second best Jurassic Park movie behind the original one. The movie, I'm pleased to say, delivers in all departments. It's fun, it's beautifully shot. The pace of the movie is perfect as it bursts of energy and action, stopping for small respites just for you to catch your breath. Trevorrow has directed a wonderful movie, and along with co-writers Derek Connolly, Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, they have brought Jurassic Park into the 21st century, but not forgotten its roots. It feels like a Jurassic Park film, especially as we return to the island of Isla Nublar. The new resort for tourists looks fantastic and sleek, especially in 3D, although some of the swooping camera shots over the resort, it did make them look tiny and kind of model-like. There are roughly 20,000 visitors on the park, with most of the attractions around the island being tightly controlled by a group of IT boffins in a control room that wouldn't look out of place in the film War Games or on the TV show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They've spared no expense with holographic dinosaurs in the museums and cool-looking glass-type gyrospheres, which you hop into and you can drive around the many planes observing the dinosaurs without any obstruction to your view. The whole park feels like Apple have lent a helping hand and made everything sleeker than a velociraptor's tail. So all this is made possible by Irvin Khan's character, who plays the 8th richest man in the world, billionaire Simon Masrani. He's the John Hammond of the film. Simon has many ideas and a romantic look on life, but unfortunately without seeing the dangers right in front of him. He leaves the everyday running up to Bryce Dallas Howard's Claire Dearin, who really only wants to make sure the approval ratings are up and, more importantly, that the park is making profits, big profits. So it seems that the normal, everyday dinosaur is no longer profitable. As they state in the film, kids look at a Stegosaurus these days as if it's a cow. So, to maintain profits, they decide the best course of action is to make their own dinosaur by splicing bits of dino DNA together to create a super monster. And this is why this is a monster movie and not a dinosaur movie. Although there are dinosaurs in the movie, the main bad guy is the new hybrid called the Indominus Rex. It's big, it's really, really big, and it's very, very clever too. Velociraptor clever. The bigger and better the dinosaur, the better the profits. But as you can guess, this only spells disaster, and eventually our old Indominus fella escapes and kills everything in its rather large path. Claire calls in Owen Grady, who's played by Chris Pratt, a badass ex-Navy SEAL, who knows how to train raptors. Yes, that's right, he can train raptors. He's the alpha male in a pack of raptors and has kind of gained the trust of these raptors. Something that InGen has taken a huge interest in and can see potential to weaponize a raptor. So anyway, Owen Grady is called in to save the day and to pick up Claire's nephews, who are played by Nick Robinson and Ty Simpkins. They, along the way, happen to be VIP visitors and they get lost in the park, inevitably. Grady, along with Claire Dearin, who turns from a pencil-pushing, smartphone-hugging businesswoman to a Ripley-style action hero by the midway point of the movie, they go out to find the kids and also prevent this hybrid monster from attacking the main tourist complex. Here's where the movie really comes into its own, and the sense of threat from this monster is really well presented. Although I did feel sorry for the first band of employees who were ordered to stop this huge Indominus Rex with non-lethal weapons. A bad day in work is definitely assured there. There's a nice tip of the hat to the original Jurassic Park as we get to see the original complex from the 1993 movie, and in particular where the end scene took place. I won't spoil it, but it will definitely make you smile if you're a fan of the original. Chris Pratt, for me, is the standout performance in the movie. Even though Bryce Dallas Howard plays a fine part, it's Pratt on-screen presence that makes his character the main event in the movie, even more so than the Indominus Rex. His dry wit and timing is second to none, and I can easily see him as a future Indiana Jones. His bond with the raptors makes the movie unique in the Jurassic Park franchise, and this I would like to see more of in future movies. The two nephews I mentioned were played by Nick Robinson and Ty Simpkins, and although their performances are good, their characters feel a little unbelievable. I really can't believe that even the most bored, lovesick, hormone-crazy teenager would find a park with a T-Rex chomping down a goat to be boring and lame. It feels like the two kids were not as believable as Tim and Lex in Spielberg's classic. The use of CGI in modern day movies is always one of debate, and let's not beat around the Triceratops here. This is a CGI heavy movie, with only one dinosaur in the whole movie being animatronic. But it really doesn't matter, the CGI is not overdone, and as mentioned right at the beginning, the movie looks beautiful. The 3D is done really well, and this is one of those rare films I would recommend to watch in 3D. It's not in your face, but it adds a good depth of field to the whole movie, especially the helicopter flying over the island. So whenever I see a helicopter flying over an island, I think of the Jurassic Park soundtrack. So now, let's mention Michael Giacchino's Jurassic World score. We get the familiar Jurassic Park theme, which of course was written by John Williams, but Giacchino delivers a punchy and at times sentimental soundtrack that fits perfectly with the movie. It doesn't overpower, which a lot of modern day soundtracks seem to have a habit of doing lately. He drops in familiar Jurassic Park cues at the right moment that adds to making Jurassic World a worthy sequel to Jurassic Park, and a soundtrack that I would definitely recommend you purchase. It's a shame that Colin Trevorrow has said he will not return for the next Jurassic World, because he's done a wonderful job and proven himself as a director that can take on big-name movie projects. His pacing is spot on, and even the end scene is just the right length. It's not overlong, which again is another bad habit of modern action movies. The ending is satisfying, and the conclusion to the movie obviously leaves the door open, or should I say the island available for more Jurassic World movies. With the in-gen threat and interest in weaponizing dinosaurs touched on in the movie, I think this is probably the next path we will see Jurassic World head in. Go see it, it's good, Pratt is superb, the dinosaurs and movies are bigger, louder and smarter than before. It's a perfect popcorn monster movie. It feels like they spared no expense on Jurassic World. Well done, Colin. So there's my review of Jurassic World. Thanks for listening to it. I hope you enjoyed it. Normal service will be resumed next time, bringing you all the latest news on Steven Spielberg, George Lucas and John Williams. For now, I'll hand you back to the Coffee with Kenobi team. Goodbye.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say,
Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
Our first collector's news story is the San Diego Comic-Con merchandise exclusives, and we're really pumped about this, and I'm particularly glad. I'm always glad to talk with Jeff, but having you on to talk about these exclusives, very Force Awakens heavy, which is not really a surprise at all, but tell me what you think about these three little items here.
Well, first off, we'll just go down the list. We have a Lego Stormtrooper, buildable Stormtrooper. We also have a Black Series Stormtrooper, all Force Awakens, which I believe these are called the First Order. Is that?
Yes.
The First Order Stormtrooper. And we also have a Hot Wheels car based on the First Order Stormtrooper. So really, it's First Order Stormtrooper heavy. And
it's going to take some getting used to, First Order. But maybe it won't take some getting used to once we've seen the film. But anyway.
It sounds a little ominous to me. I kind of like it.
It sounds very Nazi Germany to me.
Well, they are called Stormtroopers.
True.
So there is that. Now, the Lego set, I don't know if you've seen these before, but Lego has
not
done a few of these where they're basically about 6 to 9 inches tall, and you put your Legos together to build an action figure. And I love the concept, and it works well with droids, and actually works fairly well with Stormtroopers because there are joints built into their armor. And this one actually is my favorite of the ones that I've seen, but I'm still just not really sold on the concept, basically just because places like their hips are just Legos, and if I'm going to spend the time and money on an action figure, I'd rather just get something like the Black Series figure. What do you think about these?
The Legos or the Black Series?
The Legos.
I think that they are intriguing, and I appreciate there's an audience for them. But yeah, my money, it ain't me. Yeah, but I'm more interested in that Black.
Oh,
are you kidding me?
This thing.
That's it, man. That's what it's all about.
I really hope that they release this on a normal card. Even if it's a variant on a normal box, so that I can get my hands on one without having to pay $700 for it. This thing. Oh my cow. This thing looks amazing.
It really does. It reminds me, you mentioned the variant, but I mentioned earlier when we're talking about our news stories, when Hasbro first did the Black Series and it was Boba Fett with Han Solo and Carbonite, which now you can't get unless you go on eBay. They have since released Boba Fett, although he's extremely hard to find and he does not come with Carbonite. So I'm thinking they'll do that, where eventually we'll get to see the new Stormtrooper. I mean, it's a Stormtrooper. They're going to be everywhere, you would think.
True, yeah.
And usually that weekend, Hasbro.com will have very quick window shots where you can go on and purchase it online, but that's usually very, very hard to do. Not only to find it on the website, but to jump in and get it before it sells out. But
no kidding.
That's definitely the one that I want. So this is the part of the show where we beg and plead. If there are any listeners out there who happen to be in line and want to grab an extra one or two for myself and Jeff, we would be okay with that.
We would, and if you can only grab one, I will gladly arm wrestle Dan for the rights to purchase it from you.
That seems like a reasonable thing. And it's going to be hard to do that since you're in Texas and I'm in Illinois.
Yeah, but I will warn you, I've seen Over the Top at least 35 times. So anybody who's listening who gets that reference, you're cool.
Stallone. Yeah, it's a gorgeous figure. And as far as the armor itself, I got to be honest, when I first saw the trailer on Black Friday for the very first Force Awakens, I thought, I like the Stormtrooper armor. I like the classic armor. I don't know about this. Now I cannot get enough of it. I would venture so far as to say I am obsessed with the new Stormtrooper armor. I think it's amazing, and I love it, and I definitely want to get this figure.
It's definitely growing on me, and again, they're sort of winning us over by hammering it home, because the other exclusive that was announced was the Hot Wheels car, which is again based on this armor. And I'm not a huge collector of the Hot Wheels. Taylor will buy me a Hot Wheels every once in a while when he's out and about and he sees something. For instance, he bought me one that is the car from Heart to Heart, the Robert Wagner TV show, because he knew that I was the only person he knew who would appreciate it, and he was right. But this one is one I might have to add to my collection, because the design just works. It works so well too. It almost looks like a NASCAR, like an actual stock car racer that has just been painted as a big rolling ad for The Force Awakens to me.
Well, much like when they had the Darth Vader Hot Wheels exclusive, the packages they put on these exclusives that Hot Wheels does and Mattel does, they're gorgeous. And that's another one I'm interested in too. If I had to choose between that and the 6-inch Black Series, I'd get the Black Series. But I love this Hot Wheels vehicle. I have a few of them so far, and I only opened one. And that's because I wanted Mason to play with it, but I think it's great.
Yeah, and I do. I really love this car, and I love the fact that they've got. It looks like a lightsaber hilt on the side of it, but I guess it's supposed to be just the barrel of the laser rifle.
I guess it reminds me of the McQuarrie Stormtrooper.
Quite a lot, yes.
Yeah, which I'm sure that's not an accident.
Right. All of that is on purpose. It's great. And for our next story, we got more Disney Infinities talk. I know, Dan, you're a huge fan of these, you and Corey both. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm not a fan, I just have no experience with it. But they're bringing a taste of Rebels to it. We're getting some Rebels characters with the Infinities toys. And these, to me, look better than any of the ones we've seen yet. But I think it's because maybe it's easier to do something like this from an animated character than it is from a human character, because to me these look almost exactly like their counterparts in the series.
You think so?
I do. Yeah, obviously they're a little bit more super deformed, like Kanan has, a longer face, and Ezra's hair is a little more anime inspired, but to me I look at those and like there's no doubt who those characters are.
That's true. Dan Brooks has an excellent write-up on StarWars.com about it. And they talk about sort of the inspiration, because when they were going to the drawing board, literally, to make these, it was kind of at a very critical spot in the animation process itself. So it's pretty cool. And it's interesting you say the anime thing. I'm trying to find the exact quote in the article, which will be located in our show notes. But anime is one of the inspirations for this. Did you see that?
I did not. I'm just that good.
Wow, you are. Well, I mean, you are very good when it comes to that sort of thing, picking up on the influences of the artwork. I would say.
That's you see that a lot these days for things aimed at kids because starting with 10, 15 years ago with Pokemon, the anime influence got even stronger than it was even in the late 80s. And so I feel like I'm not a huge fan of anime, and I'm not a huge fan of anime versions of characters because I feel like a lot of times it looks a little lazy to me because you really are just making certain features more pronounced than others. But these, like I said, it really works for me. There's just a hint of it.
Anything you want to say in particular about any of the certain figures?
Well, I love the Sabine figure. Looks great. I love the detail they put in her hair, and they've got her standing on that helmet. And the Zeb figure is the one that is the weirdest one to me because it's very blocky, but it works. But I like this pose that they've got him in. He's basically looks like he's beckoning you to just dare him to come after him, and I love that because it's very in keeping with his character.
The article says that Zeb was sort of a design nightmare because of the scope and the scale of what he is like, and to keep that cost prohibitive and to keep it in line with the other Disney Infinity figures, and there are many of them. So I think that's interesting. I highly recommend that you read Dan's article on StarWars.com because it goes over it quite well how they designed this. And they've set it up so they will look more like they do in Season 2. Now, I have seen the Season 2 premiere, which is absolutely wonderful and stunning. And so, on the Ezra figure, and I'm kind of going through their little slideshow, he's got his scars from his fight with the Inquisitor at the end of Season 1, which is cool. He certainly looks more grown up than I picture him, but great. The Kanan one is the one that I'm the most torn on because the Kanan figure is one I'm the most torn on because I'm unabashedly a huge fan of Kanan and Freddy. I think he looks old in this. Do you see what I mean? I see what you mean. I think it's the brow that they put on him. It is. And I guess if you pair him up with the Ezra figure, they connect. And it works better if they're, what does it say? It says that how they are posed very much tells the story about them and what they're like as characters. I'm going to try to find it while you wax poetic about what you think about these two figures.
Well, I do like them both. And, as you said, Ezra looks a little older, so it would make sense that Kanan might look a little bit older as well. Ezra, to me, doesn't look that much older, but I can definitely see what you're talking about because he does look a little taller, a little slimmer, a little more grown up. And the Kanan figure I just really like because this serious look that he's got on his face just carries a little more weight, and he seems like the Kanan that we saw at the end of Season 1, who has made his decision. He's realized what it's going to take to win these battles that they're fighting, and I don't know, it looks like Kanan to me.
It does. Here's what it says. It says, his pose should be more confident than Ezra's. Indeed, Kanan looks more cautious, yet also more able. But when they're together, it should look like Ezra's learning from him. And this is the interesting part. If you put Ezra in front of Kanan, it doesn't work. If you put Ezra to the side of Kanan or behind Kanan, it works. You can see Kanan is the mentor. I love that they're taking this to such a degree that storytelling is a part of the design of these characters as well.
Absolutely. And that's the mark of a good sculptor and a good toy sculpt, is that it tells you a story as well.
And you said you like Zeb. Zeb is my least favorite. He looks like a baby. Look at his face. He looks like baby. He looks like Groot.
I know. He looks like a Muppet, the Muppet Baby version
baby
of Zeb, and that's why I love him.
The Muppet Baby version.
He really does.
True.
He really
totally
does.
True.
But he's still, like I said, he's got that scowl, that sort of smirk, and he's daring you to come give him a try. And I just love that.
The concept art close up towards the top of the article, pretty slick. I mean, come on. And it looks to me, unless I'm reading this wrong, that they're not going to all be sold in one set, which I don't think they usually are anyway. Well, the Avengers had a pretty big set. And you mentioned being a fan of Infinity. I am a fan of Infinities. I haven't purchased any of the games. I have none of the figures. I drooled incessantly over the Avengers ones, and I just never pulled the plug because I always told myself, well, if I wait a year, probably I'll get to see some Star Wars. And hey, here we are.
Didn't even take a year. For our final Collector's News segment, we join Dan and Jeff as they watch the Battlefront trailer. Let's listen and find out what they think.
Okay, hold on.
This is a video game?
Yeah.
Yeah, these environments look great.
Well, we'll just have this part of the show. It's our commentary of the. It certainly has a wonderful feel to it. There's
really
no doubt about that.
I've only ever played Battlefront in demo form. This looks amazing though. These graphics are phenomenal.
Just wait till you see what's coming up. And for those of you listening, I have seen this once, but Jeff has not seen it yet. But look at this.
I've seen this for the first time. This is amazing.
We had TIE fighters flying around. We've got the AT-ATs coming up.
Yeah, and like I said, these graphics are just phenomenal. I can't believe this. Just at a glance, you think you're watching film.
The music and the acting is exquisite. Now, this is canon, so does this mean that TIE fighters and Star Destroyers are just off camera in the atmosphere of Hoth?
Apparently. Seems like we should have seen that, though. This reminds me a lot of the Battle Pods game. Not Battle Pods, the Star Wars Pod video game.
Right.
You sit in. This reminds me a lot of that, except you're on.
I think this is even better.
Around. It certainly looks better.
Now we've got this scene where they're loading up this special rocket to shoot the AT-AT.
Yeah, this is. Well, and of course, Hoth.
But
is
suddenly a Scoutwalker shows up out of nowhere.
Hoth is my favorite section of The Empire Strikes Back and of any Star Wars movie anyway. So this is right up my alley. This is great.
It's beautiful. The other thing is, it's almost dizzying. It's such a frenetic pace,
right?
Like any first-person shooter. Notice they are shifting from first to third person. I think just to show kind of what this game can do for you.
I wonder if you can shift out of that in and out as you're playing the game, or if it's just.
I'm sure most of them are like that anyway. Now look at this. Suddenly we are the AT-AT. Look at how the perspective shifts, where the rebel soldiers we were encountering before are incredibly tiny, and the AT-AT just isn't that amazing?
Oh, this is so cool. Is this on?
Fantastic.
Is this going to be on PS4, Xbox One, and
PS4,
PC?
Xbox One, and PC?
None of which I have. Well, I have a PC, obviously, but not.
Look at this
game. Oh, here comes the snow
now
speeders.
We're looking at the AT-AT targeting the snow speeder, and now suddenly we are in the cockpit of the snow speeder. Oh man, just hearing that Williams' score. And look at how you're in the cockpit. I've seen and played a lot of games with the Battle of Hoth, but I've never actually felt like I was in the cockpit until I've seen this footage.
Well, and just every once in a while, seeing the Star Destroyer in the shot when it passes around is just it really is breathtaking.
It's breathtaking, absolutely. And again, Williams' heroic score. Now we just took out the AT-ATs, about to wipe out,
and it's gonna fall.
I don't know if this is good, making for good podcasting, but it sure is fun to watch and talk about.
Me, yeah. And there it goes. Down goes the AT-AT.
I gotta say, when you're watching this trailer, everybody, put your headphones on and listen to it in stereo because it's amazing. Now look at this. Now you're in the cockpit of the TIE Fighter. Watch this. When they shift the perspective.
There's the Star Destroyer again. It's moving so fast, too.
I know.
There we go. Right inside the TIE Fighter.
Isn't that incredible?
That's so cool.
I just noticed how much like the Imperial Cog, the inside of the TIE Fighter cockpit is.
Right. Wonder if that was by design. And we're back down in the trench.
Now watch this. Get ready to have your mind blown. Again, I have seen this before. Jeff hasn't, so this is fun. Watch what happens to one of these soldiers here.
He's got a jetpack, and that's a Rodian. Yeah, he's a Rodian. What is he shooting at? Oh, he's getting force choked.
I'll say.
So does that mean Vader? Oh, there's Vader. That scared me. Probably more than it probably should have. And now you're fighting as Luke Skywalker with your green lightsaber. He's got to be cold.
And no coat.
No coat. You're going to catch your death of cold, Luke.
Did you see that, how he took out those 3?
And now he's going to fight Vader.
A heck of a way to end that. That's beautiful.
Comes out in November.
What do you think?
Well, I will just like to remind everybody my birthday is in November.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
10 days before.
Is it reminding if you didn't know in the first place?
Yes. Well, yes. Because if I'm reminding you, then I'm not just saying, hey, my birthday is in November. Of course, I don't have a PS4 or an Xbox One, but that could change between now and then. Guys,
I do have a PS4.
So you will be getting this, I'm assuming, the day it releases.
Yes.
And guys, you got to go check out this trailer. This is a lot of fun. I'm not somebody who watches video game trailers on a regular basis, but this one, it's like watching a trailer for a new movie. It really is.
It's awesome. Cool. It's awesome. It's something like I haven't really been into video games for a very long time. I mean, I played the heck out of them for 20 years, but it's just, you life takes over and your schedule fills up with lots of things. This is exquisite. There's going to be a novel to accompany it, so that will certainly help. I'm a little concerned. The canonical person inside of me, seeing Luke Skywalker on Hoth with his green lightsaber and no warmth of any kind. Didn't his mom tell him to dress warm?
He's got his midichlorians to keep him warm.
I guess so. And maybe since this is canonical, maybe this is something that takes place on Hoth, but not during The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, it must not be. I don't know. There's a story there, and I am certainly excited to hear it. Vader showing up, like you said at the end, wow, that is intense and scary. It reminds me of when the Resident Evil video game first came out, and you never knew when a zombie or some sort of creature was going to break through a wall or a window and attack you, and you were trying to frantically figure out how to move the character you were using anyway, and you know that there's somebody there that's going to be an imposing force. So they certainly got Vader's mystique down. It's exciting.
And we've also just learned why Jeff never played Resident Evil, because I don't like getting scared when I'm playing a video game.
No, that's fair. Check it out and let us know what you think.
Hi, this is Scott Murray of the Assembly of Geeks, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z and Corey Clubb. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Our topic for show number 38 is Revenge of the Sith. Scott Murray of Assembly of Geeks returns as we continue our analysis in reverse chronological order of the 6 existing Star Wars films. How does Revenge of the Sith add to the Star Wars mythos? What are some of the more intriguing themes contained in the film? What did you think of the fall of Anakin, and did Padme's death seem plausible? We are excited to have Scott back for another cup of coffee to talk about this. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, guys. It's good to be back with you.
It is, and I'd like you to meet a friend of mine. His name is Jeff McGee. He's filling in for Corey tonight.
Yeah, hey,
hi, Jeff.
How's it going, Scott? I've never spoken to you before in my life.
Yeah, I know. Who would have thought?
The
Both
irony.
into podcasting and never talk.
I know. What are the odds? We're having a side of irony with our coffee. Very good. So, obviously, as our loyal listeners know, Scott's been on with us to talk about the prequel, not the prequel, but the original trilogy. And now since we're going backwards from Return of the Jedi, we are at the prequels, the polarizing at times prequels, but I think Revenge of the Sith is an excellent place to start, and I'm sure you both would agree. So let's just start with you, Scott, your overall thoughts on Revenge of the Sith.
And let me throw a monkey wrench into this right out of the gate.
Okay.
He's never seen it.
Yeah, right. I like Revenge of the Sith fine. Although I oftentimes, when I tend to rank the Star Wars films, Revenge of the Sith oftentimes competes for 5th or 6th place. Believe it or not.
Good. I'm glad. That will make for a more interesting discussion.
Yeah, and part of it, I mean, if I want to do the simple reasoning for it, it's just that, I'm a good guy kind of person. So I don't like seeing the bad guys win. I don't like seeing the Jedi hunted down. So part of it's just, seeing the bad things happen to the good guys, even though it has to happen for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's like a lot of the prequels as far as how I look at them. I think I'm not a prequel hater, but I do think that they have their issues. But I think they're still Star Wars. I've never gone as far as to say they don't. I don't count them or anything like that. So I like Revenge of the Sith fine. There's things I like about it. There's things that make me absolutely nuts. And but I think it is what it is, and it I think it serves its purpose to a mild degree.
Wow, I'm as I said, I'm happy to hear you have that unique view. What about you, Jeff?
Well, I don't know if I can follow Scott's ringing endorsement. I have a much higher opinion of Sith. I always put Sith at fourth on my list, sometimes even as high as third, depending on the mood I'm in.
I'm the same way.
I do think that it is the best of the prequels, and I think of the three prequels, it is the one that feels the most of a piece with the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like the storytelling is a little richer than in Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I do not care for the very end, and I know we'll talk about that a bit later. That's the only part of the film that really falls apart for me, but other than that, I feel like it really flows really well, and I think Ian McDiarmid, I honestly think he should have gotten an Oscar nomination for this film for Best Supporting Actor, because I think the work he does in the film is absolutely phenomenal, and
he is great.
The way that he gives us pure evil, but you understand why somebody would be drawn to it, and that's so difficult to do.
The charisma is there. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's always been sort of the centerpiece of the film for me, and so that's why I think I respond to it a little more strongly than I do episodes 1 and 2.
I will say this to the film's credit, we all have those movies where we know it's going to happen, but as we watch them, there's a small part of our brain that pretends like, oh, well, maybe it won't happen this time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I find that I will say that this film effectively does that. I always find myself hoping that things will turn out differently, like Mace Windu will let Anakin come with him so things don't fall apart there at the end the way they do, and that when Anakin and Obi-Wan see them, say goodbye, old friend, for the last time as their friends, that it doesn't actually end there, even though it does. So I will give the film especially that much credit, that it has a big enough impact on me where I do watch it and wish things would turn out different one time.
This is why this is my favorite of the prequels, for the things you just mentioned, Scott. And it did trigger something I wanted to say, and I'm glad you reminded me. But this film is Shakespearean. In Romeo and Juliet, in the chorus, the very first, I believe it's the 6th line of the play, or 7th line of the play, it says, "From forth the fatal loins, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their lives." So right away, by the end of this play, Romeo and Juliet are going to die, and they're going to commit suicide. But there are still 5 acts to go of a relatively short play as far as Shakespeare goes. You know what's going to happen, and every time you hear it or watch it or listen to it, you hope for something different to happen because you fall in love with the characters. And that's what happens with Revenge of the Sith. In fact, when I talked to Ian Desher, I had said to him before the prequels were even written, have you ever thought about Revenge of the Sith as a Shakespearean tragedy? And he hadn't, and it was just great to see that is a thing. That is something that is a part of storytelling and part of George Lucas's mastery of storytelling, which we know, and this will not be a prequel bashing podcast. We don't do that anyway. But this, I said, even from our very first episode of Coffee with Kenobi, Revenge of the Sith, for the longest time, I thought is the only prequel worthy of the name Star Wars. I've since kind of lightened up on that. It's pretty strong. And I love episodes 1 and 2, and I believe they are worthy of Star Wars name, obviously, as well. But we'll get to those at another show. This is about Revenge of the Sith. I love this movie, and I'm like you, Jeff. I kind of flip if it's my 3rd or 4th favorite, depending. And I do know that a lot of people from a certain generation, for them, this is their favorite film, which I find intriguing because it's so powerful. So let's jump into our memories of seeing this film for the very first time. Jeff, why don't you go ahead?
Well, this is the only one of the prequels that I did not see opening night. The night that it opened, I had to, my mother had a doctor's appointment out of town, and I had to drive her to it, and it was a thing that lasted all day, and I just didn't get to go see it until the next night. But still saw it with a full theater, still waited outside for about an hour in a line of people before the film started, and sat and talked to another fan and his girlfriend, and had just a really nice conversation and sat with them when we watched the movie. The experience in the theater was not that great because there was a girl sitting up behind us that I think must have been high. No. Because at the end of the movie, when everything's falling apart, all she did was giggle.
You draw the most interesting people to the theater with you.
You know, Scott can verify that.
You should go to a different theater.
No, it's insane. It doesn't matter which theater. There's always some jackhole up behind me who's either in La La Land or so plugged in that they're repeating everything the characters say on screen.
Now I have to put a parental advisory in this since you said jackhole.
Yeah. Yeah, just
what about the overall?
So much funnier.
What about your reactions to the film when you left the theater?
The film itself, when I left, I was satisfied. Again, I was a little frustrated at the end, but I was more satisfied than I had been at the end of episode 1 or episode 2. I was with the film. I'm with it. Right up until the very end, when Vader steps off of the table at the for the first time, he's walking, and I'm thinking, "Holy cats, this is awesome!" He's channeling James Whale with Frankenstein's monster, and then we get that pull away with Darth Vader going, "No!" Took me right out of the movie.
I think we can all agree that is something which wasn't in this particular film. The no.
Yeah, this and inserting it into Jedi.
Yes. So no should be no. But anyway.
One syllable completely changed my experience. It went from
it's much more strong without saying anything.
Agreed. With being
or with him just tearing things apart even more violently.
Right. We went from me being completely immersed to me going, "Really, George? Really?"
Well, the other thing too is when you look at how Anakin handled emotion, when he lost his mother, when he thought he was going to lose Padme, it just doesn't sound like, even if he was, in any of those moments, that's something that he would yell out.
That's been in quite a long bit of time. I don't know that I react the same way when I was 7 compared to now.
Oh, I mean, like literally, not only then, but also like even in Clones.
True. That's true.
When he learns that his mother, when he finds his mother has died.
It did. It seemed out of character. And I
don't know. I think I could argue. This is okay. This is going to be like a 4-part show. I'm okay. What about Scott? What about your first memories of seeing this film for the first time?
You know what? The first thing that comes to mind was, and little did I know, obviously, was walking in going, dang, this is the last Star Wars movie they're going to make. I'm so sad. I'm going into the theater for the last Star Wars movie they're ever going to make. Little did I know that wasn't the case. But at the time, that made me really want to indulge in that in the film even more, because I thought, I want to indulge in going in and seeing a Star Wars movie I've never seen before in the theater, because I thought that was it again. And, I'm in a very similar boat as Jeff, in the sense that, I was with it all the way through. I had issues with how certain things unfolded at the end. And I think part of it, unlike Phantom, where I wasn't letting my expectations get the best of me, I might have done so a little bit here, just because there was so much, as we just pointed out, so much divisiveness and so much screaming and yelling and anger about the first two, that when this was made, I was like, I couldn't wait to see the reviews for this, because I thought, oh my gosh, could we at least get one that more people aren't screaming at each other about? And, it was obviously a little bit better received than Clones or Phantom. And I just remember reading things from, I think, even Steven Spielberg and some other people talking about how depressing and tragic and how powerful the ending is when Anakin falls. And I agree that it's a tragedy, but I didn't, because of the way certain things unfolded, I found myself asking certain questions during it than I was actually experiencing the moment, perhaps the way they did. But having said that, there were a lot of things I liked about it, and I enjoyed the film.
Yes, I so many things pop into my mind. Just like you, Scott, I knew going in this was going to be the last Star Wars film I would see for the very first time in a theater, and that was very bittersweet. But I was so excited to see what was going to happen, what was going to be the final trigger. to make Anakin become Vader and what was going to cause the complete eradication of the galaxy as we knew it. So I remember standing in line, of course, getting tickets very early, way before Fandango, as we like to say. And the line went all the way around the entire building. I did go for the very first showing. I saw all the prequels for the very first showing at midnight, and I wasn't about to miss this one. It was just I was so excited. We had a bunch of friends with us. I was running a couple of youth groups at the time as I was going back to school to be a teacher. So there were a lot of the students that were there, and then a lot of our friends were with us. When I went in, you guys said you rolled with it, or I can't remember. How did you phrase it? You went with it? Just your experience of the film?
Yeah, I was immersed, and I was just
immersed.
I was just rolling along with it.
Yeah, I was more than immersed. I was like a part of it, like it's subconscious. It seems so weird and ethereal to say, but I was so ingrained into that film, every beat of it, because I don't know, I was very fortunate. Phantom Menace did something amazing for me. It caused me to stop being so excited and just take the movie in as it comes along. And we'll get to that again when we talk about the Phantom Menace here in the next few months. But I was just so into what was going on, and there were certain things that hit me that I knew were going to be problematic, like Anakin and Padme's awkward discussion on the terrace, where it seems like it's just bad editing with the dialogue. That's bad. And then when Vader did his no, I remember thinking for like 5 seconds, ooh, that's not going to be good. And I just turned my brain off and just kept going with what was happening, because there's so many powerful moments. And then when it was over, I was so drawn to the callback to the binary sunset, and I thought it was beautiful and poignant. I didn't expect it to unfold the way it did. I was very good about staying away from spoilers. No shock there. And it was amazing. And just talking about it now, I remember walking out and thinking that was the perfect way to end the Star Wars saga. And thank goodness there's going to be more. But I was incredibly satisfied with Revenge of the Sith. It really was amazing. I think I saw that 3 times opening weekend, which probably isn't a lot for some Star Wars diehards, but for just a regular average moviegoer, that's a lot. So I thought it was great.
Well, we talked about our feelings about the content of the film, the narrative, how we responded to it. What were some of the more intriguing themes that the film contained that captivated you, I guess is a word I'm looking for? What were some of the themes and the ideas that captivated you the first time you saw it? Start with you, Dan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, themes are things I like to talk about the most when I'm looking at literature or film anyway. So obviously the idea of being master of your emotions. Here the attachment thing really comes into play. But for Anakin, does the end justify the means? Clearly, it does not. The conversation that Anakin and Palpatine have in the opera, one of the more strong moments in all the Star Wars films, for sure.
Agreed.
And the charisma exuded through Palpatine in that moment were just unbelievably powerful. The themes of love doesn't always conquer all. It's much more realistic and more in tune with what can happen. I mean, obviously, you're not going to try to save your loved one by trying to cheat death, although when you go through the stages of grief, in all honesty, those are things that go through your mind, and how far would you go to make that happen? The film is just full of metaphor. The death of Padme at the end, Anakin killing the younglings. There are just so many metaphorical beats in this picture that are stunning. And it's not really a theme, but I love General Grievous.
What about you, Scott?
I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest theme to watch unfold that is probably one of the more gripping things outside of the obvious stuff, with Padme and whatnot, is just watching this really powerful bond that Obi-Wan and Anakin have fall apart.
Oh yeah.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that if you have that little element in your head that wants things to turn out differently, that's definitely one of the things you wish could turn out differently. So I think of that, and yeah, the seduction of evil through Ian McDiarmid's work as Palpatine in the film is very, very powerful. And I think the other element that stands out for me too is very much like at the end of Jedi. As a kid, I remember wondering, gosh, this is it. This is the last film. How is this rebellion going to take down the entire Emperor? And how is Luke going to figure out how to defeat Vader when he's his father and all that sort of thing? You almost had similar thoughts going into Revenge of the Sith as you wondered about how is this Jedi going to turn into the most fearsome, evil Dark Lord of the Sith? And on top of it, more importantly, what does the Jedi do or not do that allows them to just completely fall apart in a way that they're no longer the guardians of peace in the galaxy? So, I mean, those are three very powerful elements that the film had to fulfill, and those were the things that really stood out for me.
And I'm right there with both of you on that. The thing that always hit home to me, that permeated the entire thing, was this sort of a sense of inevitability about the whole thing. Like it's cruising unstoppably. It is cruising at an unstoppable rate toward.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm going to keep that in because everybody needs to know I'm not nearly as smooth as I think I am, and nobody thinks I'm smooth. But it just seems like it's going at an unstoppable rate toward its inevitable conclusion, and there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. And along with that, going back to what you guys were saying about Palpatine manipulating everything, just the idea of what that lust for power and selfishness and greed can do, not only to oneself but to those around you, because it's his greed and his lust for power that leads him to want to take over the entire Republic, and it's Anakin's selfishness and his greed and his desire to have Padme to himself. I feel like it really sort of feels like he views her as not necessarily a possession, but it's.
I think you could argue that.
It could be argued, but it's not quite that pronounced. But he definitely views her as something that is his to protect and to keep. And that,
it ceases as soon as he turns to the dark side. It ceases becoming love and becomes more about something else. Becomes an attachment, and this is the literal reason. Attachment, in general, just affection for someone else, is not against the Jedi way. If you don't have compassion, then you're not a Jedi. Then you don't have peace. But he takes it to an extreme and becomes very inwardly focused instead of outwardly focused. And while we're talking about Anakin, let's just talk about his fall. One of the biggest, most controversial moments of this film, the most discussed moments of this film, is when Anakin ceases to become Anakin and becomes Darth Vader, right after the death of Mace Windu. So, guys, was that a plausible fall?
I think if you can take a few seconds to tie it to everything else, yes. And I think that's maybe perhaps the challenge to some degree to having the films 2 to 3 years apart, perhaps. Because I find myself making this argument, even though I don't think it was the strongest scene it possibly could have been for when Anakin makes the conscious decision to turn, or when he just literally turns. I kind of expected something a little more, I guess, jarring than him just basically dropping to his knees going, I'll do what you ask. But at that point in time, to your point, there was no way out after he helped kill Mace Windu. But if you tie that to all of the conversations he had with Palpatine up to that point, his paranoia about losing Padme, his constant for at least 2 full films trying to prove that he's worthy to somebody, and he just can't prove it to anyone. And in fact, before he helps kill Mace Windu yet again goes, do this and then you'll earn my trust. I mean, even up to that point, he was the one who found out that Palpatine was a Sith, and he still didn't have Mace Windu's full trust. That tied to losing his mother, being raised as a slave, being told, hey, I'm going to take you away from here, but your mother has to stay. And then when I take you here to the Jedi Council, I'm going to train you to be a Jedi. And the Jedi Council goes, no, we're not interested in training him. And then the one guy that does want to train him dies. So when you tie all that together, everything that happened in Clones and everything happened up to that point, I think it's plausible. It's just a lot to think about, whereas perhaps the film might have done a little bit better job of creating a really jarring kind of straw that breaks the camel's back moment versus him just dropping to his knees and saying, "I will do what you asked," even though fully knowing at that point he really didn't have a choice.
And that's why it never rang true to me. It has less to do with the circumstances surrounding it, because by and large, I think when somebody does make that decision and cross over to, quote unquote, the dark side, for lack of a better term, in everyday life, I have a feeling that more often than not, it happens less in a dramatic moment and more just in a moment where you feel like you don't have any other choice. Mm-hmm. And that's what it felt like here. But I never felt like we saw Anakin make a decision. I never felt like we saw that switch get flipped. Did I say that right? Yes. The switch get flipped.
Yeah.
And him make a conscious decision to say, okay, yes, this is the path I'm going to go down. It just seemed like it was, okay, this is all that's left, so I guess I'll do this. And
well, go ahead.
Oh, and that's why it just didn't ring true to me completely.
Yeah, I liked it. That makes a lot of sense. I think I've always liked that scene, and I was moved by it, but not to the degree that I had hoped I would. And to be fair, you've been waiting since 1977 to see what makes Darth Vader become Darth Vader. Is there anything possible that can live up to what is in your head? As I mentioned at the top of the show, I was pretty good about just kind of living in the moment. Feel, don't think, use your instincts. I was you pulling a Qui-Gon on that. So I bought it, but I remember thinking, there's just something. There's something about this scene. I mean, as you said, Scott, there is a lot of things building up to this, and the 3-year gap is a very good point. Slaughtering sand people, that's pretty serious. The Clone Wars themselves and what that does to you, and although he really enjoyed the Clone Wars really on all fronts except for the loss of Ahsoka. But again, when Revenge of the Sith was written, none of this stuff had happened, so it's kind of a retroactive canonical shift. But you still have to do the work, and I think that's the challenge for me with the scene is, as an audience member, I love to think, I love to analyze. It's why we do the show. But I don't feel like I should have to do that much work. Like you said, there wasn't really a choice. I guess to be fair, too, he did behead Dooku. He absolutely assassinated him because his mentor, his father figure, told him to. He was reluctant and felt horrible after, but it went away really quickly. And so then he helps kill Mace Windu, who he didn't necessarily love, but I don't think he wanted to murder the guy per se. I mean, not to this degree. And then he goes flying out a window. He's not going to recover from that, I wouldn't think. So he's experienced trauma in combat, and he's been in war for a long time too. So to that extent, I make peace with it. And listen to me, even trying to rationalize it now, I still feel like I had to do too much work.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to ask, that I'd like to ask you guys about it, that I found a little disappointing, just because the buildup was so big and you were just fired up for it. You had Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, and the third Jedi, I'm drawing a blank. I know his name, but I can't think of it. But those 3 guys come in, light up their lightsabers.
What a great
and
scene.
Say,
too.
Hey, you're under arrest. And he goes, oh, really? And lights up his lightsaber. And I thought we were going to have a pretty good fight. But those first, Kid Fisto, the other guy, go down like 2 seconds. And I just felt like we maybe deserved a little more of a fight. But
well, see, I love that because that shows you just how powerful Palpatine is.
Well, is that what it means? I mean, they just, they were
That's
just
how I took it.
Yeah, he's,
they just can't, they just weren't ready. They couldn't handle, they weren't, Mace Windu was the only guy that could hang.
Yeah, and even that, I feel like that was a bit of a bait and switch. I think Palpatine was struggling, but I think not to the extent that he led on. I think that was part of manipulating Anakin. In fact, I'm convinced he let himself be disfigured to try to get Anakin to come to his side.
Yeah, yes, I agree. The only reason I hesitated was because when I did the Skype chat with Craig Dickinson's classroom, one of the kids asked, why did Palpatine get disfigured by his lightning, but Luke Skywalker didn't at the end of Return of the Jedi? Which made me think that maybe Palpatine's scarred face was his real face. And the one he had been showing us was a mask.
Well, I mean, because basically it's a reflection of his soul.
Right. But anyway.
I like that.
Good question.
Yes,
it's very good.
I know. The kid asked a question. I was like, I had never thought of that before.
Well, when Luke gets hit by the lightning, it doesn't reflect off the lightsaber either, though.
No,
that's true.
With it.
That's true. That's very
It kind
true.
of covers his whole body, doesn't
Static
it?
electricity, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like when you rub a balloon on your head. Actually, not like that at all. Anyway,
I don't know what you're talking about, Dan. Nothing happens when I rub a balloon on top of my head.
That's true.
So we've discussed how we felt about the fall of Anakin Skywalker, which was just something that we had all been thinking about for years. We'd also all been thinking about the slaughter of the Jedi and how that happened. And we got to see Order 66 in Episode 3. How did that feel to you guys? Did it meet your expectations? Was it a little less dramatic than you were hoping for, or what did you think? And again, Dan, we'll start with you.
I thought it was beautiful and sad, and I really didn't know these Jedi besides the fact that some of them were cool, some of them weren't, and I had all of their action figures. but the music, John Williams' score in this film is just unbelievable in its own right. But the music in this is so sad. I even have goosebumps talking about it now. I was devastated. And now that I know these characters so well because of the Clone Wars and books and comics, oh man, does it ever hit you? I thought that was stunning and unexpected in all the right ways.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think that actually is one of the parts that hits me harder than some of the others is seeing these clones turn on the Jedi, and obviously the ones that, Cody and the ones that are with Obi-Wan. They're all helping him one minute and they're all hunting him the next minute. It's definitely I think one of the more tragically emotional parts of the whole film.
And see, I'm going to disagree with both of you. It didn't work for me because it was too abrupt. We've heard about, he hunted down the Jedi, he murdered the Jedi, he slaughtered the Jedi, and it lasted all of 2, maybe 3 minutes. And it just seemed very anticlimactic to me. The part that did get to me, though, was Anakin going to the temple and killing the younglings. That was one scene that I thought was handled very well. And the little kid, if you go back and watch it, so the little kid who says, Master Skywalker, what are we going to do? You hear the lightsaber hum, and the little kid jumps back, reacts.
Yeah.
And it's one of the scariest moments to me that ever committed to film, because this little kid is like this person he's trusted, and you just see everything in that kid's face. Remarkable job by that kid.
And Obi-Wan's reaction when he hears about this and they see the imagery, it's like a sucker punch to your soul. Because you know Anakin when he was a little boy, and that is the brilliance of the Phantom Menace, because you care about him in a whole different way because you've seen him when he was a child, and to see what he does to these children. Again, I'm most comfortable with Paul McDonald's idea that it's a metaphor, that he's not actually killing kids. It's really he's completely killing the innocence within himself. To me, that's literature at its highest form. So that's another reason why this film is excellent.
Agreed.
All right, so let's shift gears to another challenging topic. We're only bringing up the challenging topics, and I think the main reason is we could go, oh, this is great, this is awesome. Of course it is. But let's talk about the problem of Padmé's death. And I'm going to start first on this one. When I first saw it, I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. And I remember going to my friend Greg's house. So I know the Berkey family listens. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your support. They're actually going to Disney World, and they're all going to wear Coffee with Kenobi t-shirts. So we love that.
Yes, nice. We do.
Very cool. So I remember his wife, Karen, saying that she did not like the scene. In fact, she said she hated it. She said, I'm a mom. There is no way you could die of a broken heart if you just had children. It's the happiest moment of your life. Okay, so now fast forward. I'm a dad. Got 3 kids. In the room when my little boy was born. Okay, can you die of a broken heart? You can. After having a child, possibly, I guess, if you have just seen the love of your life commit atrocities and try to murder you. I know that there's a very popular theory out there by, maybe this is Palpatine that did it. To me, Palpatine could have done it. But if he could kill people from a distance like that, he'd probably do it more frequently, and maybe he has. But I'm more along the lines of when Anakin force choked her, that could have conceivably done something to her physiology while she was about to give birth anyway, too. Of course, Trish's article in Insider about the reason that she died was because Anakin was supposed to die, but because he warped the physical world to stay alive, an eye for an eye had to take effect, and death wanted to take someone, so it took Padme.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen all kinds of explanations, and I think the one that Tricia gives definitely has some credence. I think the one about Palpatine doing it from a distance. I think, we discussed that on Assembly of Geeks, and I thought we thought there were elements of it that made sense, but I've also read a pretty good dispute against it as well. I've read people talk about it's another one of those elements where the two of them are connected, and the moment that the good Anakin died, she as a result died as well. I've seen all kinds of stuff, and it's interesting. That's one of the great things about storytelling in film. Sometimes is they create those kind of discussions. I mean, I look at it more from just how everything unfolds on film, and I think there are good reasons why this discussion takes place, and there's bad reasons why this discussion takes place. And part of it was just the execution of seeing it all unfold probably could have been better and stronger. We've said that about some other scenes. But I would also challenge people who say that to go, all right, well, you're in George Lucas's chair. You've got to somehow make Luke and Leia get born, Anakin fall, and Padme die. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Then it becomes a little more easier to believe that they unfolded it the way they did. And I think the stronger arguments, too, tend to be rooted in looking beyond just Revenge of the Sith, but also things from the other films that also led up to this point. But, I mean, just from a storytelling standpoint, I think that is a huge set of things to achieve in that finale, especially when the film's going to be PG. So
it was PG-13 actually,
or PG-13.
Yes, it was PG-13. I loved there was something sort of poetic about her dying in childbirth with these two twins who were going to give birth to the rebellion. My main problem was the diagnosis by this droid of she just seems to have given up. She seems to have lost the will to live. I feel like, and people have made the comment that, that droid may have been wrong.
Yeah.
But that seems like really faulty screenwriting to me as well. I think it would have made more dramatic sense to me, and it would have been a lot more heartbreaking and tragic had her death been the result of injuries she did receive at the hands of Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
When he choked her, he choked her, he did something that caused her to start to die, and she stayed alive long enough to give birth to her children, which shows that she is stronger than she is as strong as we thought she was.
Very much. And listen, I don't have a uterus. That's not exactly a spoiler, but I've never had a baby. I will tell you,
right.
Childbirth is incredibly hard on a woman's body. And she had twins, and she'd just gone through trauma and was almost killed, almost suffocated, force choked. So it's conceivable. And, I'm sure they've got lots of technology, clearly. No Bacta tank that I could tell. And who knows what Bacta does to a child. Well, I can't really believe I'm actually going to that direction. But
you're a geek.
Nerd. Right. Yes, I am. So, you know what? I'm actually... It's problematic, but it's not a problem. And this is one of those things where I like the ambiguity, and I embrace it.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your point.
But I couldn't say that for some other things in Star Wars, but for this, I'm okay with the ambiguity.
And, her whole world had crumbled around her, too.
Yeah.
The Jedi Temple was on fire. The Jedi were getting hunted down. A husband's now a bad guy, just killed a bunch of children. She gets choked. I mean, everything she even lived for was just, the world's on fire.
Yeah, it literally was. Mustafar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More symbolism there, too.
After all is said and done, how do you think Revenge of the Sith adds to the Star Wars mythos?
Well, again, I accept Revenge of the Sith, even with some of the issues I have with it, as far as what its job is, for lack of a better word, perhaps, in setting everything up that eventually leads to some of the events we know that happen in A New Hope. Again, the big things for me was, the opportunity to see Vader before he was evil. I think that works. To see the Emperor be who he was in the beginning, it all works. But I think for me as a Star Wars fan, I think one of my greatest enjoyments about it is just the journey of Obi-Wan too. And this is really, when you think of how Episode 4 was the first one we all saw, or A New Hope was the first one we all saw, it was long after these events. So, I believe in that journey and how it ties to the Star Wars saga and the Star Wars story. So, I think there are plenty of things to pull for it to pull from it that make it a adequate piece to the Star Wars story, the Star Wars saga, the Star Wars universe.
And I think it's the perfect bookend to the prequel trilogy, and I think it's powerful, poignant, and stays with you for a long time. Even just the reflection with you two gentlemen just reminded me of the emotions I felt when I saw this film. And there's certain key moments, like when he says, you were my brother, you were the chosen one, just brings tears to your eyes practically. It's unbelievably powerful, very Shakespearean, and honestly, if it wasn't for the Shakespearean angle, I don't even know if I've ever gotten a chance to write for StarWars.com, because that was one of the first things I talked about. So this movie is one of my all-time favorites.
Well, and for me, I'm kind of with both of you on that. It was great to get a chance to see the fall of Darth Vader, even if it didn't happen in the way that we all expected it to. Again, goes back to expectation and hype. The one image from the film that always sticks with me, this may be strange, but it's when we see the face mask come down onto the camera for the first time, and it seals into place, and there's a puff of smoke that comes up. And it's just that reminder that inside there is basically the charred remains of a human being. And you have to know how much pain he is in on a regular basis inside that suit. And you realize he is locked in forever. And this is as far as he knows, the last time he's ever going to look upon the world with his own eyes. And that just sort of hammers home the tragedy of this character and the tragedy of this original trilogy, which also leads right into the New Hope that we do get from the original trilogy. And I'm so glad that we are getting more Star Wars, because it is kind of a bummer to end on that note, even though you know what comes next, and you know that eventually they all do live as close to happily ever after as they can. It's nice to know that the last image we see on the big screen for the first time is not going to be this tragic end to this story.
Yeah, and I did like see the last image too of Vader on the bridge with Tarkin is a really cool scene to wrap.
Yes, I agree. I really like that as well. So, Scott, thank you again for joining us this evening. Can you tell us what's coming up in the near future from you and Assembly of Geeks, since I have no idea what's happening?
Yeah, I start saying you can just take a break for a second, because you already know all this stuff.
No spoilers.
I will just say that this, we're rolling into our second year, and Jeff, as you know, this has been an incredible year for Assembly of Geeks, and the growth of listenership and the new people that we've gotten to meet, both listener-wise and colleagues-wise. Things are still going strong. Lots of really good discussions. We're excited about the new show, Comic Book Noob, which is, I think, really filling a need out there for fans like myself, who, have been watching all these TV shows and movies, and at times have thought, I want to get into comics. And, or read some of these stories from these people I'm watching on film and TV, and read what happens to them in the comics, and then go, I just don't know where to start. And it's been great to make that part of one of the things, one of the content shows that we can offer listeners. And of course, we're all very excited that there will be a second season of our Peggy Carter podcast next year. So a lot of good things happening on Assembly of Geeks, and just want to invite everybody to, if they listen on iTunes or Stitcher, to not only join us, but share their feedback anytime. We read people's thoughts on the air, and if they have a comic book question, to send that our way, and would love to have you if you're not already there. And it's all at assemblyofgeeks.com.
And I can put a plug in for Comic Book Noob because I'm not on the show. If you guys haven't heard that yet, seriously, go check it out. Scott and the crew do a remarkable job on that show of breaking down what each character, where the essence of each character, where you need to start. The Daredevil show, I told Matt the Daredevil show sold a couple of comics because the minute you guys were talking about the Legion of Monsters, I said, okay, which issues do I need to buy? So it's a lot of fun. Where can people find Assembly of Geeks online and on the Twitterverse and elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it's just assemblyofgeeks.com. We have links there to Twitter and Stitcher and other places that you can get it, including direct downloads. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter at Geeks Assemble. And we're always sharing not only podcasts, but lots of geek news on all that front. So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people follow Assembly of Geeks, is because we're always watching breaking news on everything geek and sending it out there for people to see. So we're very active in the geek community, and we enjoy interacting with everybody that's there with us.
Yeah, yes, we do. All right, well, thank you again, Scott, and everybody, again, be sure to check out Assembly of Geeks. I can say without prejudice, it's a wonderful show. And thank you again,
especially those hosts, huh?
Yes, especially the hosts are they're the hosts with the most.
Scott, thank you so much for being back on Coffee with Kenobi with us, and we will certainly look forward to having you back on for Attack of the Clones.
I'm looking forward to that as well. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk Star Wars. Always happy to do that. And when you let me know that it's coming up, I always look forward to it.
More to add, do you?
As part of our discussion of Revenge of the Sith, we have an email from Mark Suter, who is a blogger for the Cantina Cast and a co-host of the Idiots Array podcast. And it's just about his journey as a fan, non-fan, and then fan of the prequels. So let me read what Mark wrote to us. He says, after many years of hating the Star Wars prequels, I've come around to being a full fan of the whole saga. Thanks to Kyle Newman's full-throated defense of the prequels on the Force Cast, the Clone Wars, and of course Mike Climo's Star Wars ring theory, I've finally reconciled the characterization, setting, and plot of the prequels with the whole saga. This took a lot of personal evaluation and realizing that my problems with the prequels were firmly rooted in my own expectations for what I wanted to see. That said, there is one detail about Revenge of the Sith that will always bother me: Padme's death and the birth of the twins. Granted, her death lends to the tragedy of Vader, but it never lined up with Leia's words. She died when I was very young. I always expected her mother to go into hiding on Alderaan as a caretaker in some capacity. Granted, this is, again, a preconceived notion, but it still doesn't ring true for me. Having said that, issue number 2 of the Princess Leia comic went a long way in helping me get into the idea. When she saw her mother's portrait and it seemed to glance back, it does fit in with Leia remembering these thoughts and feelings. So, Mark, thank you for writing in and sharing that with us, and that will certainly come to bear on our discussion.
Very much so. And Mark, well, that is obviously very well written, and it's clear that you are an awesome blogger. And I do love Idiots Array podcast with our good friend Ryder. Ryder's, of course, blogs with us, and he's an awesome guy. We had so much fun hanging out with him in Anaheim, and he does bring up some great points. You really liked that scene, didn't you, in Princess Leia number 2, where that stained glass thing of Padme looked over?
I did. It was haunting. It was a little haunting. She's looking up at it, and all of a sudden there's a frame of. It reminded me a lot of. It was very Dickensian. Reminded me a lot of A Christmas Carol when Ebenezer Scrooge is going home and his door knocker turns into Jacob Marley's face.
Oh, interesting.
It was very much in that same vein. It was just sort of spooky to me, and seeing that sort of. Not really magic, but that sort of otherworldly happening in the Star Wars saga was very interesting, and I'm anxious to see if we see more of that sort of thing in the comic.
Our topic for show number 39 is the music of Star Wars. How does John Williams' iconic music add to the feel and tone of the films? What are some of your favorite pieces of music, and why? Joining us on this topic is Steve Torok. Listeners of our shows who have enjoyed the jazz music over the years will recognize the brilliance of Steve Turok, as his album Eye to Eye has been an important part of Coffee with Kenobi. In 300 words or less, be sure to send us an email or an MP3 with your thoughts, comments, questions, and opinions to feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. And I know that David Collins has that amazing podcast, The Oxygen of Star Wars, where they break down the music in incredible ways, and we certainly can't even imagine being able to do it on that level. That's certainly not my background, music. I'm much more of a literature analytical guy. But this is our chance to kind of dive into it, and we've been an admirer of Steve for so long, so it's going to be a real honor to get to speak with him and pick his brain, because he clearly understands how this music works.
I'm looking forward to hearing that. I'm a huge music fan, and I'm a little jealous now that Corey's going to get to talk to him. But that's okay, because I got to talk to Scott.
That's right.
Since I don't do that every week.
I like the sound of that.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Ano, buddy, do you read me?
I saw part of the message.
I seem to have found it.
All right. In our first email, we have the great Glenn Nelson from High Adventure. He wrote in and he said, "Dear friends and family, Glenn here, and I'd like to ask for your help with a project that I'm working on. In my life, I've been blessed to make music with some of the finest musicians in the New England area. For the last 7 years, I've poured all of my passion and creativity into a band called High Adventure. We're nerds, geeks, parents, school teachers, and artists, and the band, which has grown into an 8-piece ensemble with horns, has found a worldwide following of like-minded friends and fans who love our brand of fan rock and share with their friends, primarily at Comic-Cons and all around the country. We have independently released 4 albums available already on iTunes, and go ahead and search High Adventure for those, and played shows at Comic-Con events all across America. Up till now, we have done everything ourselves, but we are ready to take it to the next level, and that's where you come in. We're going to crowdfund our 5th album entitled High Five, and we're going with a website that we know and trust called Pledge Music. As these things typically go, you can make a safe and secure pledge on the site anywhere from $10 to, well, as much as you want. Every donor that we get gets us one step closer to our dream of becoming an independent band. The fun part for you is that there is so much cool stuff to pledge on, including signed CDs, exclusive demo versions of the songs, handwritten lyrics, VIP access to our shows, private lessons from band members, exclusive artwork, a signed guitar, house parties, full-blown rock shows, even a golf adventure and a bike tour. There's literally something for everyone. So if you have a moment, watch the video, which we will include, follow the link, and check out the project for yourself. It would mean the world to us if you wanted to jump on board and get involved. And that's Glenn from High Adventure, and we put that in our website, and we'll have it in our show notes to check out. But they're awesome. I first became acquainted with these guys through the IndieCast and Ed Dolsta, of course. And it's well worth your time, and if you have a moment and a spare $1 or $2 and want to send it their way, I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. I plan to pledge a little bit myself. I love that name, High Adventure, because it's so epic in scope.
It's rollicking.
And it captures exactly what they're going for. I love it. We also want to take a moment to give some props to Richard Garrett Jr. on Twitter for providing us with the definition of snoke, which apparently means to prowl or sneak about. So I learned something today. Thank you, Richard Garrett Jr.
Yes, thank you, dude. I appreciate that, Richard, very much, and I promise you we'd mention it on the show, and we certainly are going to do that. I'm actually a little almost embarrassed that I didn't even know this, because I'm certainly a wordsmith, and now I can be even more loquacious than before, so I appreciate that, my friend.
Loquacious, good word.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or jeffm@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section. Or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes or Stitcher. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date at our Twitter feed at Coffee with Kenobi, no I in with. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoyed the jazz music, the album is Eye to Eye by Steve Torok on iTunes.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 38 of Coffee with Kenobi. A huge thank you to Scott Murray of Assembly of Geeks for coming on and discussing Revenge of the Sith. Be sure to check out and subscribe to Assembly of Geeks for the best in geek discussion and conversation.
Thanks also to Rob at the Bearded Trio, media specialist Lisa Dullard, our Coffee with Kenobi bloggers, to everyone who contributed to this show, and to all of you out there who listen to and email Coffee with Kenobi. Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on the topic for show number 39, the music of Star Wars.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.